He threw his own mother's birthday gift into the trash, calling it senile garbage. He threatened to kick her out onto the street for hoarding useless clutter. But he had no idea that the dusty box he despised was actually a rare antique worth over $5 million. Welcome to a story that will shake you to your core. This isn't just about a hidden treasure, it is a brutal collision between a mother's unconditional love and an ungrateful son's blinding greed. We live in a world where price tags often replace values, where success is measured by the car you drive, not the heart you carry. If you have ever felt invisible, undervalued, or heartbroken by the people you love the most, this story is for you. Meet Joyce, a fragile grandma clinging to a piece of history, and Herbert, her arrogant executive son who sees her as nothing but a burden. Today, you are going to witness a journey from the depths of humiliation to the highest peak of redemption. But be warned, this isn't a fairy tale. Before the triumph, there is heartbreak. You will see a mother pushed to the brink of homelessness and a son so lost in his ego he almost destroys the only real thing he has left. If you believe that karma always finds a way and that family is the true priceless treasure, hit that like button right now to show your support. Subscribe to join our community of story lovers, turn on notifications so you don't miss a beat, and let's dive into the shocking truth behind the trash that was worth millions. Joyce Harrison stood rooted in the cavernous, marble-floored foyer of the Shaw estate, her weathered hands trembling violently as she clutched the dusty, wooden box against her fragile chest. It wasn't wrapped in the gold foil or silk ribbons typical of this zip-code. It bore only the worn, rough texture of history, a true hidden treasure cloaked in modesty. She had mentally rehearsed this pivotal moment 1,000 times, praying that this artifact from a forgotten era would finally bridge the expanding emotional chasm between her and her only child. Today marked Herbert's 50th birthday, a milestone, and she desperately wanted to gift him something priceless, not in terms of cold, hard equity, but in deep, vibrating ancestral meaning that money couldn't buy. The crystal chandelier above sparkled aggressively, seeming to mock her frayed cardigan and sensible shoes, but she held her ground, fueled by a mother's undying hope and the crushing weight of a family drama that had silently plagued them for decades. The heavy oak doors swung open with a theatrical groan, and in walked Herbert Shaw, radiating the suffocating arrogance of a corporate titan who believed he owned the spin of the earth. He was barking into his phone, dismantling a competitor in a merger deal, barely acknowledging the existence of the grandma of his own alienated children standing there like a specter. The temperature in the room seemed to plummet as his cold, calculating gaze finally swept over her, devoid of any warmth, recognition, or filial piety. He didn't see the woman who had sacrificed everything for his success. He saw an inconvenient interruption to his carefully curated, high-velocity life, a relic of a poverty he had tried to scrub away. It was the genesis of a painful collision, a violent clash of worlds between the humble, sentimental past and the ruthless, sanitized present. Taking a breath that rattled in her chest, Joyce stepped forward into his path, offering the box with a smile that wavered dangerously, failing to reach her anxious, watery eyes. "Happy birthday, my son," she whispered, her voice cracking under the tectonic pressure of her emotions and the fear of rejection. She genuinely believed this was a heart-touching gesture, a sacred passing of the torch from one generation to the next, a way to say "I love you" in a language deeper than words. The box felt impossibly heavy in her arms, burdened with ghosts, memories, and a legacy she prayed he would possess the wisdom to understand, or at least the decency to respect. She wasn't looking for ultimate justice for his years of neglect, just a fleeting moment of connection, a simple nod to mend the deafening silence. Herbert stopped mid-sentence, slowly lowering his phone as if interrupted by a beggar, looking down at the object in her hands with a mixture of confusion and revulsion. He didn't smile, he didn't reach out to receive it, he just stared with a look of utter, unfiltered disdain that soured the air between them. It was the definitive look of an ungrateful son who had lost the ability to see the diamond in the rough, blinded by the artificial glare of his own vanity. The silence stretched, thick, suffocating, and toxic, turning what should have been a celebration of life into a scene of a life lesson waiting to devastatingly unfold. His eyes flicked judgmentally from the battered box to her lined face, calculating the social cost of her presence, and ultimately dismissing the sentimental value she held so dear. Joyce felt her heart plummet into her stomach, the shocking truth of his absolute indifference piercing her soul like a cold, rusted serrated blade. She remembered vividly when he was a boy, how he used to marvel at the smallest wonders of the world, but that boy had been devoured by this stranger in a bespoke suit. Now, standing before this greed-driven executive, she realized with horror that wealth had not just changed him, it had corroded his fundamental ability to feel anything authentic. She wanted to explain, to frantically tell him about the rare antique resting inside, but the words died in her dry throat, choked off by his aura of superiority. The gap between them wasn't just physical distance, it was a moral chasm, a void where love used to live. The tension in the room was palpable, a silent scream begging for release or a single crumb of acknowledgement from the man she raised with her own calloused hands. Herbert finally took a languid step closer, not to embrace her, but to inspect the offering with a sneer that twisted his handsome features into something ugly. He leaned in, the sharp scent of expensive, musk-heavy cologne overpowering the faint smell of old wood and lavender that clung to Joyce like a second skin. Joyce braced herself physically, hoping against hope for a sliver of kindness, but his lips curled into a cruel, dismissive smirk that spelled emotional disaster. He was about to speak, and she knew, with a sinking, nauseating dread, that his next words would shatter her heart into irreparable dust. Describe the atmosphere in one word: suffocating. With a dismissive, elegant wave of his hand, he finally took the box, holding it by a single corner as if it were contaminated medical waste. "What is this, mother?" he asked, his voice dripping with a condescension that echoed sharply off the cold marble walls. He didn't wait for an answer, turning his broad back on her to head towards the drawing room where his sycophantic guests were waiting.
Joyce stood frozen, the warmth of the box gone from her hands, replaced by a cold, aching emptiness. She followed him, a small, gray shadow in his wake, unaware that her precious gift was about to become the centerpiece of her public humiliation. The drawing room was a cacophony of shallow laughter and clinking crystal, a sea of tuxedos and designer gowns worn by the city's elite predators. Herbert entered the fray, the dusty box looking alien, grotesque, and offensive against a backdrop of modern abstract art and Italian leather furniture. He held up like a trophy of absurdity, a prop for his performance, drawing the hungry eyes of his wealthy friends who paused their conversations to witness the spectacle. Joyce lingered painfully in the doorway, feeling microscopic and woefully out of place, watching the family drama escalate from a private slight into a public shaming. She wanted to dissolve into floorboards, but her feet were rooted, compelled by a morbid necessity to witness the fate of her treasure. "Look what the cat dragged in," Herbert announced, his voice booming with forced, theatrical laughter to entertain his captive audience. "My mother decided to raid the attic for my birthday," he jeered, presenting the box not as a gift, but as a punchline to a joke nobody else understood. The guests chuckled politely, sensing their host's amusement and eager to please him, unaware of the deep cruelty bubbling beneath the surface. To Herbert, this wasn't a hidden treasure, it was just more evidence of how embarrassingly out of touch Joyce had become with his reality. He reveled in their attention, using his mother's sincere, vulnerable gesture to boost his own ego, playing the role of the long-suffering, benevolent son. "It looks like dirt," one of the guests, a woman draped in red silk and diamonds, commented with a wrinkled nose, leaning in but keeping a sanitary distance. Herbert laughed louder, a harsh sound. "Exactly. It's just some senile garbage she's been hoarding for decades in that room of hers." The words hit Joyce like a physical blow to the chest, the phrase senile garbage echoing endlessly in her ringing ears. This was the ungrateful son at his peak, performing for a crowd of vultures, selling out his own flesh and blood for a cheap, fleeting laugh. It was a grotesque display of greed for social validation, proving he valued the opinion of these strangers over the feelings of his grandma. Joyce stepped forward involuntarily, her hand reaching out trembling as if to protect the box from their corrosive mockery. "It's not garbage, Herbert," she said, her voice shaking but audible, cutting through the sudden, awkward silence. The room went quiet, eyes darting between the well-dressed, powerful executive and the frail, defiant old woman. It was a moment ripe for a life lesson, but the crowd was too absorbed in the spectacle of the drama to learn it yet. Herbert's smile faltered for a microsecond, replaced by a flash of irritation that she dared to interrupt his comedy routine with her reality. He looked at her with pure annoyance, silently warning her with his eyes not to embarrass him further. "Oh, please, Mother," Herbert scoffed, rolling his eyes dramatically as he tossed the box onto a polished glass coffee table with a careless, heavy thud. "Don't pretend this is some rare antique. It's just old junk you can't let go of because you live in the past." The sound of the box hitting the table made Joyce flinch visibly, imagining the delicate, centuries-old item inside shattering into fragments. The guests smirked, sipping their vintage champagne, relieved the tension had broken back into comfortable mockery. They didn't know they were looking at $1 million find. They only saw what Herbert told them to see: trash from a crazy old woman. If you were a guest, would you stand up or stay silent? Joyce felt the heat rise to her pale cheeks, a toxic mix of shame, indignation, and sorrow burning within her chest. She had polished that box with her own sweat, kept it safe through wars, recessions, and moves, only to have it treated like roadside litter. She realized then, with a clarity that hurt, that money had not just changed Herbert, it had blinded him to the priceless nature of sentiment and history. He was poor in the only currency that truly mattered: kindness and empathy. The humiliated mother stood there, surrounded by unimaginable wealth, yet feeling like the poorest, most destitute soul in the room. But Herbert wasn't done. The entertainment had to continue for his high society court to ensure his dominance. He gestured imperiously to a waiter. "Get me a real drink. Something aged. I need to wash the dust out my throat." The room erupted in laughter again, cementing Joyce's isolation in a cage of ridicule. She looked at the box, sitting lonely and judged on the cold glass, and felt a single, hot tear prick the corner of her eye. The night was supposed to be a celebration of life, but it was turning into a nightmare of regret. Joyce wiped her eyes hastily with her sleeve, stepping fully into the lion's den, determined to salvage the meaning of her gift amidst the cacophony of ridicule. She approached the table, her hands hovering protectively over the box, trembling not with age but with suppressed, volcanic emotion. "Herbert, please, listen to me," she began, her voice gaining a shred of desperate strength. "This belonged to your great-grandfather. It has traveled oceans." She tried to weave the story, to invoke the powerful legacy that this item represented, hoping to spark a dormant memory in his hardened heart. It was a desperate attempt to turn this trash to treasure in his eyes, to show him the rich history he came from before the money erased it. Herbert, glass of amber liquid in hand, turned to her with an exaggerated sigh of profound boredom, conspicuously checking his expensive Swiss watch. "Mother, spare us the romanticized history lesson." He cut her off, his tone sharp, clinical, and dismissive. "We are trying to enjoy a party, not a lecture on genealogy from the old world." He looked her up and down, his eyes lingering critically on her frayed cardigan and the loose threads of her dress. The shocking truth was that he was deeply ashamed of her, ashamed of the poverty she represented. Her modest appearance was a stain on his perfectly curated, glossy, high-net-worth life. "But it's important, Herbert," Joyce insisted, her voice wavering as she fought back tears. "It's a rare antique. It holds the secrets of our blood." She reached out to touch his arm, a mother seeking a physical connection, but he recoiled instantly as if burned by fire. The guests pretended to look away, examining their manicures, the family drama becoming too real, too visceral for their superficial tastes. Herbert brushed his sleeve aggressively where she had touched him, a gesture of ultimate physical rejection. "Look at you," he hissed, low enough so only she could hear. "You look like a beggar. You're embarrassing me in front of my investors." The words were a poisoned dagger to her heart, the ultimate betrayal from an ungrateful son who had forgotten, who wiped his tears and scrapped for his meals. Joyce pulled back, clutching her hands to her chest, the heart-touching moment she envisioned crumbling into absolute dust. She realized with horror that he didn't just not care about the object, he hated what it represented, a past he felt superior to. The greed for status had hollowed him out, leaving a shiny shell of man who couldn't appreciate the priceless love standing right in front of him. Is social status ever worth sacrificing your own blood? "I just wanted you to have something real," she whispered, the fight draining out her frail body like water. Herbert laughed, a harsh, barking sound that lacked any humor. "Real? Real is my stock portfolio, Mother. Real is this house." That box is just clutter, dust, and memories that don't pay bills. He turned back to his guests, effectively dismissing her existence. Someone get the staff to clear this table. He ordered loudly. Joyce stood there, stripped of her dignity, the regret of coming here washing over her in waves. She looked at the box one last time, realizing it was as unwanted as she was in this palace of cold stone and glass. The life lesson was being written in real time, but Herbert was the one failing the test miserably. He was throwing away his heritage, blinded by the glitter of his current life and the applause of strangers. Joyce felt a profound, heavy sense of karma hovering in the room, a feeling that this cruelty would not go unanswered by the universe. With her head bowed in defeat, Joyce retreated towards the shadows of the hallway, the laughter of the party resuming instantly behind her back. She didn't leave the room entirely. She couldn't leave the box defenseless. She watched from the corner, a silent, weeping sentinel, as her son continued to play the king, unaware that he had just cast aside the crown jewels. The night was far from over, and the depths of his cruelty had yet to be fully explored. The party eventually moved to the sprawling patio, but Herbert remained inside for a fleeting moment, spotting the box still sitting defiantly on the table. It irritated him viscerally, a physical manifestation of the past he so desperately, violently wanted to bury. He snapped his fingers at a passing maid, pointing at the offering with a grimace of disgust. "Get rid of this," he commanded, his voice devoid of any sentimentality. "I don't want this clutter in my house. It ruins the aesthetic." It was a decisive act of an ungrateful son, sentencing his birthright to the garbage without a second thought. The maid hesitated, glancing at the intricate, dark carvings on the wood, sensing perhaps with the worker's intuition that it wasn't just trash. "Sir, throw it away? In the bin?" she asked, clarifying the absurdity of the order. "Did I stutter?" Herbert snapped, his patience thin as paper. "It's senile garbage. Trash to the trash. Get it out of my sight. Go." He turned on his heel, feeling a twisted sense of relief, as if discarding the box would also discard the embarrassment of his mother's poverty. He didn't know he was throwing away $1 million find, blinded by his own arrogance. Joyce, watching from the shadows of the hallway, gasped audibly as she saw the maid carry the box towards the kitchen exit. Panic surged through her veins, overriding her shame and her fear. She ran, her old legs moving faster than they had in years, bursting through the kitchen doors just as the maid dumped the box into a large, industrial, foul-smelling bin. "No," she cried out, a sound of pure, unadulterated anguish. It wasn't just an object, it was her heart they were tossing aside amidst the fish bones and coffee grounds. The kitchen staff froze, witnessing the raw family drama spill onto the tile floor. She didn't care about the grease stains on her dress or the indignity of the situation. She dove into the bin without hesitation. Her hands scrabbled frantically through wet refuse and discarded napkins until she felt the familiar, solid wood. Pulling it out, she clutched it to her chest, tears streaming down her face, mixing with the grime. It was a heart-touching and pathetic sight, a mother reclaiming her love from the trash. She was humiliated, yes, but her love for that object and what it meant was stronger than her pride or hygiene. What emotion boils in you seeing a mother in the trash? Herbert entered the kitchen, drawn by the commotion, and stopped dead in his tracks, his face twisting. Seeing his mother rooting through the garbage didn't spark pity, it sparked a cold, blinding fury. "My God, Mother," he groaned, covering his face with his hand in exasperation. "Have you no dignity left? You're acting like a rat." He didn't see her pain. He only saw the mess she was making in his pristine, sterile home. The shocking truth of his coldness was on full display for his staff, who looked down, uncomfortable with their boss cruelty. "It's not trash." "Herbert," she sobbed, wiping the box with her apron, trying to clean the disrespect away. "You don't understand. You never listen." Herbert stepped closer, towering over her small frame. "I understand that you are obsessed with junk. Get up. You're making a scene in front of the help." He offered no hand to help her up. She stood alone, clutching the hidden treasure that was now soiled, much like their relationship. The ultimate justice felt light years away in this cold, stainless steel kitchen. Joyce walked past him, head down, holding the box like a rescue baby. She had retrieved it, but something in her had broken permanently. She realized that to him. She was just like the box old, worn out and disposable. As she exited the back door, leaving the greed and noise behind, she whispered a promise to herself to protect the legacy, even if her son wouldn't. Back in her small, cramped room in the guest wing, the only place Herbert allowed her to stay, far from the master's suites, Joyce set the box on her tiny nightstand. She tried to display it with dignity, placing a small lace doily underneath it, attempting to restore its honor amidst the gloom. It was a rebellion, a quiet stand against the ungrateful son who ruled the house with an iron fist. She sat on her bed, staring at it, the rare antique glowing softly in the dim light, a beacon of a better, kinder past. She wasn't just hoarding stuff, she was hoarding memories that were being erased. The door banged open without a knock, the wood shuddering in its frame. Herbert stood there, filling the doorway, his face flushed with the embarrassment of the kitchen incident. He pointed a finger at the box, his eyes wild. "I told you to get rid of that," he seethed. "If you're to fill my house with trash to treasure nonsense, you can do it somewhere else." The threat hung in the air, heavy, poisonous, and terrified. He was weaponizing her shelter against her sentiment. "It stays in my room." "Herbert, it bothers no one here," she said softly, her voice firm for first time in years. Herbert laughed, a cruel, incredulous sound. "It bothers me. It smells like decay and poverty." He took a menacing step into the room, invading her sanctuary. "Listen to me closely. If you don't stop this hoarding, I will move you to a nursing home. Tomorrow, I have the papers ready." The words nursing home hit her like a physical blow. It was the ultimate family drama ultimatum: compliance or exile. Joyce looked at him, horror dilating her eyes. "You wouldn't," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I would," he countered, adjusting his silk tie as if discussing a business transaction. "I need this house to be presentable. I don't need a Livian rag-and-bone woman tarnishing my image." This was greed consuming the last shred of filial piety. He was willing to discard his grandma, the woman who raised him over a wooden box. It was a shocking truth that she had to accept her son had become a monster. Would you ever forgive a threat like that? "It's just a keepsake," she pleaded, tears welling up again, blurring her vision. "It's worth so much to me." Herbert scoffed, turning away. "It's worth zero. Zero. Just like your contribution to this household's economy." He turned to leave, tossing a final command over his shoulder. "You have 1 week. Clear the clutter, or I clear you out. Don't test me." The door slammed, leaving her in a ringing silence. The box seemed to vibrate with the injustice of it all. Joyce touched the lid of the box, her fingers trembling uncontrollably. She was trapped in a nightmare. She couldn't throw it away, it was priceless to her soul, but keeping it meant losing her home. She felt the crushing wave of regret, wondering where she went wrong in raising him. Had she loved him too much? Or not enough? The life lesson was harsh sometimes. The people you love the most are the ones who hurt you the deepest. She lay down, curling around the box, finding comfort in the cold, hard wood. She wouldn't let him win. She wouldn't let the hidden treasure go. There had to be a way to show him, to make him see. But for now, she was an old woman in a cold room, threatened with eviction by her own flesh and blood. The following day, a ruthless business rival of Herbert's, a sharp-eyed shark named Mr. Vance, came over for a critical negotiation. Herbert was eager to impress, sweating slightly, showing off his curated art collection and modern sculptures. As they walked past the open door of Joyce's room, Vance paused. His eyes, trained to spot value and weakness, caught a glimpse of the box Joyce had defiantly left on her nightstand. Herbert noticed the pause and immediately felt a surge of panic and irritation. "Apologies for the mess," Herbert said quickly, moving to close the door, trying to block the view. "My mother, she has difficulty letting go of junk. She's getting old." He tried to steer Vance away physically, but Vance lingered for a second longer. "Interesting piece," Vance remarked with dry, sarcastic chuckle that cut deep. "Looks like something dug out of a crypt. Very rustic. Doesn't quite match the Mies van der Rohe, does it?" He didn't mean it as a compliment. It was a subtle dig at Herbert's polished image, a hint that his roots were showing. Herbert's face turned a deep crimson. He took the comment not as an observation of the rare antique, but as a direct insult to his carefully constructed status. The comment fueled his anger toward Joyce like gasoline thrown on an open fire. She was humiliating him again, even without being in the room. In his twisted mind, she was the anchor dragging his high-flying ship down into the mud. This family drama was now affecting his business image, the one thing he cared about above all else. As soon as Vance left, Herbert stormed back to Joyce's room, kicking the door open. She was sitting in her chair, reading. "Did you hear that?" he screamed, startling her so badly she dropped her book. Vance laughed at it. "He laughed at us. Because of your garbage." Joyce looked confused, trembling. "He noticed the box?" she asked, a flicker of hope rising. Maybe he saw. Herbert cut her off with a shout. "He saw garbage. He saw that I live with a hoarder. He thinks I'm a joke." The ungrateful son twisted the reality to fit his narrative of victimization. How do you handle someone who twists reality to hurt you? He didn't know what he was looking at. Joyce said quietly, trying to calm him, "And neither do you." Herbert kicked the door frame, splintering the wood. "I know what I'm looking at. I'm looking at the reason I'm a laughingstock. You are sabotaging me." His greed for respect made him blind to the truth. He couldn't conceive that the trash was actually $1 million fine. His arrogance wouldn't allow it. "Keep that door shut," he spat, his face inches from hers. "Better yet, lock it. I don't want anyone seeing your shame. You are a blemish on this house." Joyce felt the sting of his words like a physical slap. It wasn't her shame, it was his. But she nodded slowly, knowing that arguing would only hasten her trip to the nursing home. The life lesson continued: you cannot make a blind man see by shouting at him. She waited until his angry footsteps faded, then looked at the box through her tears. "They don't know you," she whispered to it, stroking the lid. "But I do." The hidden treasure remained a secret, mocked by the ignorant, waiting for its moment of redemption. The visit had only solidified Herbert's resolve to purge the clutter, setting the stage for the tragedy to come. In the dead quiet of the night, when the mansion was asleep and the greed of the day had settled into silence, Joyce found her solace. She would sit by the small, yellow lamp, a soft cloth in hand, and quietly polish the item every night. It was a ritual, a holy communion with the past. As she rubbed the wood, she would whisper stories of her father, of the war, of the day Herbert was born. She found comfort in the object Herbert despises. It was her only friend in this hostile, cold environment. "You remember, don't you?" she would murmur, tracing the intricate carvings that seemed to dance in the shadows. "He was a sweet boy once, before the money." It was heart-touching to witness a lonely woman pouring her vast love into a lifeless object because the living recipient rejected it. The box absorbed her tears and her secrets, becoming a reservoir of her history. To her, it wasn't just a rare antique, it was a vessel of the family soul. She treated it with the reverence of a priceless artifact, which, ironically, it was. These nightly sessions were her spiritual armor. They reminded her that she had value, that she came from people who mattered, who loved her. The family drama outside her door couldn't touch her here in this circle of light. For a few hours, she wasn't a burden, she was a custodian of a hidden treasure. She imagined the ultimate justice of Herbert finally understanding, but the hope was fading with each passing lonely day. One night, she found a hidden latch she hadn't noticed in 40 years. It didn't open, jammed by time, but reminded her of the mystery the box held. "One day," she promised the box, kissing the wood, "one day you'll shine and they will see." She was polishing away the senile garbage label Herbert had slapped on it, restoring its dignity one gentle stroke at a time. It was a silent, persistent act of defiance against the ungrateful son. "Do you have an object that holds your secrets?" Sometimes, she would hear Herbert pacing in the hall, angry on his phone, screaming at subordinates, and she would hug the box tighter to her chest. It was her shield against his energy. She knew he wanted it gone, but she couldn't let go. It was the only thing that felt real in a house made of plastic, veneer, and pretense. The shocking truth was that the box was the only thing in the house worth more than money. As she polished, though it seemed to glow warmer deeper as if responding to her love. It was a trash-to-treasure transformation that only she could see with her heart. She was a guardian of the legacy, the keeper of the flame, and though her heart was breaking, her spirit found strength in the quiet rhythm of the polishing cloth. She fell asleep with her hand resting on the lid, dreaming of a time when the life lesson would finally be learned. But morning always came too soon, bringing with the cold reality of Herbert's disdain and the ticking clock of his ultimatum. The tension in the house reached a breaking point when Herbert suffered a minor business setback that felt like a catastrophe to his ego. A deal fell through, bruising his reputation and his wallet. He came home in a foul, dangerous mood, looking for a scapegoat, and he found one readily available in Joyce. He stormed into her room, his tie undone, the smell of stress and scotch radiating from him. He saw the box, still on the nightstand, and it became the focal point of his blind rage. "I told you," he roared, startling Joyce from her nap, making her jump. "I told you to get rid of this trash. Why do you defy me?" He didn't care about the box. He was taking his frustration out on her because she was weak. It was the classic bully move, the ungrateful son kicking the dog because the world kicked him. "You're a weight around my neck. Mother, you and your garbage are dragging me down." The family drama exploded into verbal violence that shook the walls. Joyce stood up, trembling, shielding the box with her body. "Herbert, please. It's just a box. It does nothing to you. It's defiance," he shouted, his veins bulging. "It's you refusing to listen to the man who pays for your food. I work all day to pay for this roof, and you fill it with junk." He grabbed the box, lifting it high. Joyce screamed, "No, don't touch it." She lunged for it, a desperate, heart-touching defense. He stopped, surprised by her ferocity, but his eyes were cold as ice. "Fine," he sneered, slamming it back down hard enough to crack the table. "You have until tomorrow morning. If this clutter is not gone, I'm calling the home. And I'm not paying for the premium room. You'll go to the state facility." The threat was absolute and cruel. He was choosing his wounded pride over his grandma. The greed for control had completely consumed him. He wanted to hurt her because he was hurting. Is there ever an excuse to speak to a parent like this? "Why do you hate it so much?" Joyce cried, tears streaming. "Because it reminds me of where we came from." He yelled back, his face twisted. "And I hate where we came from. I'm a self-made man, and this is poverty. It smells like failure." The shocking truth was out. He hated the box because he hated his past. He wanted to erase the life lesson of his humble beginnings. Get it out, or get out. He turned and left, the ultimatum hanging in the air like a guillotine blade, ready to drop. Joyce collapsed on the bed, sobbing uncontrollably. She couldn't fight him anymore. She was old, tired, and heartbroken. The rare antique sat there, a silent witness to her despair. She knew what she had to do. She couldn't let him throw her out into the street, but she couldn't let him destroy the box. She had to make a choice, a terrible sacrifice. It was a moment of deep regret and sorrow. The ultimate justice seemed like a fairy tale now. Reality was a son who wanted his mother gone. The sun rose on a gloomy, overcast morning, casting long, gray shadows across the Shaw estate. Herbert woke up late, his head pounding from the alcohol, the anger from the previous night settling into a cold, hard resolve. He walked down to the kitchen for coffee, expecting to see Joyce, but the room was empty and silent. He checked the living room, the patio, even the garage. Silence. He went to her room, ready to evict her if the box was still there. The door was open. The room was empty. The bed was made perfectly, and the box the hidden treasure was gone. On the pillow lay a single, folded piece of lined paper. Herbert picked it up, a flicker of unease in his gut. He unfolded it. "My dear son," it read in her shaky, looped handwriting. "I am sorry I was a burden. I have gone to sell the box. I will use the money to pay for my own care at a nursing home, so I won't bother you anymore." The words hit him, but not with the impact they should have. He felt a twinge, yes, but his greed and relief were louder than his conscience. "She actually left," he muttered, looking around the tidy, sterile room. "And she took the trash with her." He didn't think about where she would go or how much she would get for the junk. He assumed she'd get a few dollars from a pawn shop, enough for a bus ticket maybe. He underestimated the priceless nature of the item and the depth of her sacrifice. This was a heart-touching tragedy he was too blind and self-absorbed to see. He crumpled the note and tossed it into the bin without a second thought. Problem solved, he told himself, trying to ignore the echoing silence in the house. It was quieter than usual, too quiet. The family drama had resolved itself, or so he thought. He didn't realize that by leaving, Joyce had set in motion a chain of events that would bring his world crashing down. The ungrateful son thought he had won, but the game was just beginning. Does relief ever feel like guilt in disguise? He went to work, trying to focus on his spreadsheets, but the image of the empty room lingered in the back of his mind. He told himself it was for the best. She would be better off with people her own age. He justified his cruelty as pragmatism. He didn't know that Joyce was currently walking into a high-end auction house downtown, clutching a rare antique like a lifeline. She wasn't doing it for herself. She was doing it to free him of her presence. It was the ultimate act of maternal love, twisted by his rejection. The trash-to-treasure journey was about to reach its climax, but Herbert was oblivious, sitting in his ivory tower, relieved to have the junk gone from his mansion. The shocking truth was hours away from exploding. Herbert ordered lunch, feeling lighter, unaware that the universe was preparing a dose of karma so potent it would bring him to his knees. Herbert spent the afternoon in a strange state of psychological limbo. He felt a momentary pang of guilt, a small, nagging voice asking if he'd been too harsh, if he should call her, but he quickly dismissed it. He was a busy man. He didn't have time for sentiment. He told himself she chose to leave. She's stubborn. He rationalized his reflection in the office window. She wanted to make a point. She'll be back. He was relieved. No more clutter. No more embarrassing old lady smells. No more family drama. He poured himself a drink, celebrating the quiet. The junk was gone. He could finally redecorate that guest room. Maybe turn it into a home gym or a humidor for his cigars. The greed for more space, more luxury, filled the void where his mother used to be. He was the master of his domain again, unencumbered by the past. He was the ungrateful son patting himself on the back for a job well done. But the silence of the house began to feel oppressive, almost accusatory. He turned on the TV to fill the air, flipping through channels aimlessly. He wanted noise to drown out the memory of her crying face. He felt a strange itch, a sense that something wasn't right, but his arrogance smoothed it over. It's better this way, he repeated, a mantra of the heartless. He didn't worry about her safety. He assumed she was at a local shelter or a cheap motel, teaching him a lesson. He didn't know she was sitting under bright studio lights, about to change history. He sat back in his leather recliner, the picture of success, yet utterly alone. The life lesson was creeping up on him, silent and deadly. Can money buy peace of mind? I'll call her tomorrow, he thought lazily. Let her cool off. He was postponing his humanity, thinking he had all the time in the world. He didn't realize that time had run out. The hidden treasure was no longer hidden, and the truth was about to be broadcast to the world. He sipped his scotch, the ice clinking against the glass the only sound in the empty mansion. He felt a chill, shrugging it off as a draft. It wasn't a draft, it was a shadow of karma falling over him. He was relieved to have the junk gone, but he didn't know he had just lost the only person who truly loved him. As the evening news ended, a special bulletin interrupted the programming. Herbert glanced at the screen, annoyed by the interruption. He didn't know that his life was about to be bisected into before and after this very moment. The TV screen flashed with the urgent logo of a popular local news station, the banner reading breaking news local antique appraisal shocker. Herbert reached for the remote to change the channel, uninterested in local gossip. But then, the camera cut to a live feed from the city's convention center. And there, sitting on a stool, looking small and terrified under the glare of the lights, was Joyce. Herbert froze, his finger hovering over the button. The glass of scotch slipped from his hand, shattering on the floor, but he didn't hear it. That's Mother, he whispered, the blood draining from his face. She looked frail, clutching the very box he had called senile garbage just hours ago. A crowd surrounded her, a hush over the audience that translated even through the screen. This wasn't a pawn shop. This was a premier antique roadshow in the state. The family drama had gone national. He stared, unable to blink, a cold sweat breaking out on his forehead. The camera zoomed in on the box, then panned to Joyce's face. She looked sad, her eyes red-rimmed. The reporter's voiceover was breathless. We are live with a discovery that has stunned experts. Herbert felt a pit open in his stomach. The hidden treasure was center stage. He had thrown that box in the trash. He had ordered it gone. And now it was on TV. Why is she there? He panicked. She's going to embarrass me again. Even now, his first instinct was self-preservation. He worried about his reputation, about people recognizing his mother. He didn't see her pain. He saw a PR nightmare. The ungrateful son was still in control. But the walls were crumbling. What would you do if you saw your mother on TV like this? Joyce spoke into the microphone, her voice trembling. My son. He didn't want it. He said it was trash. Herbert flinched as if slapped. The entire city just heard her say that. He was a villain of the story, live on air. The shocking truth of his cruelty was being broadcast. He wanted to scream at the TV, to explain, but he was helpless. I just want to sell it to pay for a room, Joyce continued, wiping a tear, so I wouldn't be a burden. The audience let out a collective awe of sympathy. Herbert sank deeper into his chair, the humiliated executive. He was being exposed not as a titan of industry, but as a bad son. But the real shock was yet to come. The expert appraiser stepped into the frame, wearing white gloves, treating the box like a holy relic. Herbert watched, his heart hammering against his ribs. The trash to treasure reveal was imminent. The expert appraiser, a distinguished man with glasses, cleared his throat, looking at the camera with intense seriousness. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, his voice echoing in Herbert's silent living room. What Mrs. Harrison has brought us today is not just an old box. He paused for dramatic effect. Herbert leaned forward, his breath caught in his throat. This, the expert touched the wood gently, is a 17th century jewelry casket commissioned by the Royal Court of France. Herbert's mouth fell open. Royal? He choked out. The expert continued. It was thought to be lost during the Revolution. The craftsmanship is unparalleled. But that is not all. He opened the box, revealing a hidden compartment Joyce had never found. Inside lay a small, gemstone-encrusted seal. This seal proves its provenance. It is a genuine royal artifact. The words royal artifact hung in the air, mocking Herbert's senile garbage comment. In its current condition, the appraiser said, looking Joyce in the eye and considering the historical significance. Herbert's mind raced. A few thousand? 10,000? I would place a conservative auction estimate. The pause seemed to last an eternity. Herbert gripped the arms of his chair, his knuckles white. At over $5 million, the crowd on TV erupted in gasps and applause. Herbert stopped breathing. $0.5 million. The trash he had ordered to the dump, the clutter he had threatened to kick his mother out for. It was $1 million fine. It was a fortune, and it treated it and her like dirt. How does the word million change your perspective? Joyce didn't smile. She looked shocked, almost scared. $0.5 million. She whispered, That's too much. The expert smiled warmly. It is a rare antique of the highest order. Ma'am, you're sitting on a fortune. The appraisal was definitive. The irony was crushing. The poorest woman in Herbert's life was now richer than him in liquid assets. Herbert's mind reeled. Greed surged instantly. That was his inheritance. That was his house's clutter. But then, the image of Joyce crying in the kitchen flashed in his mind. The realization hit him with the force of a freight train. He had almost thrown away $5 million, but worse. He had thrown away the woman who held it. The shocking truth was undeniable. He was a fool, the arrogant, blind fool. The ultimate justice had been served on a silver platter, or rather, in a wooden box. Herbert stared at the screen in disbelief, his mind warring between two powerful forces, greed and a sudden, crushing realization of his cruelty. That for a moment, he calculated the money, $0.5 million. That could expand his business, buy a vacation, home that it's family property, he whispered, the lawyer in him rising to, I have a claim. But as he watched Joyce on the screen, looking lost amidst the celebration, the greed turned to ash in his mouth. He saw her face, really saw it for the first time in years. The lines of worry had put there, the sadness in her eyes that no amount of money could fix. She wasn't celebrating the cash. She was mourning the relationship. He said it was trash. She had said the words echoed in his empty mansion. The family drama wasn't about the money. It was about his soul. He realized he was a villain. The karma was suffocating. He had threatened to put a multimillionaire in a nursing home. Because she hoarded a treasure, he felt a wave of nausea. It wasn't just embarrassment. It was shame, deep, acidic shame. He had called his mother a beggar, while she held a king's ransom. He was the pauper in spirit. What have I done? He said aloud, the silence of the room judging him. He looked at the shattered glass on the floor, a metaphor for his relationship with Joyce. He had broken her trust, her heart, and nearly her legacy. The life lesson was finally sinking in, piercing his armor of arrogance. The priceless thing wasn't the box. It was the time he had wasted being hateful. Can money buy back lost time? He stood up, his legs shaky. He couldn't stay here. He couldn't sit in this house that suddenly felt like a prison of his own making. He had to go to her, not for the money. Try to tell himself it wasn't for the money, but to fix what he had broken. But a dark part of him whispered, is it too late? The tearjerker reality was that he might have lost her forever. Even if he got the money, she had walked away. She had chosen dignity over his abuse. Herbert grabbed his keys, his hands trembling. He wasn't the confident executive anymore. He was a scared little boy who wanted his mommy. He rushed out the door, the redemption arc beginning. Fueled by panic and guilt, he drove into the night, racing towards a convention center, racing against his own conscience. Herbert drove like a madman, weaving through traffic, his eyes fixed on the road, but seeing only his mother's face. The greed that had initially flared was dying out, replaced by a cold dread. What if she wouldn't speak to him? What if she took the money and left him for good? He realized with jolt that he didn't want the $5 million as much as he wanted her forgiveness. The rare antique was just a catalyst of real. Explosion was in his heart. He pulled up the convention center. Screeching to a halt, he ran inside, ignoring the security guards. Breathless and disheveled, where is she? He demanded. Scanning the crowd, where is Joyce Harrison? He wasn't the ungrateful son anymore. He was a desperate one. He pushed through the onlookers, who were still buzzing about the $1 million fine. He spotted her near the stage, surrounded by reporters and dealers offering her cards. She looked overwhelmed. Shrinking away from the attention, she looked small. To Herbert's heart broke. He had sent her here. He had driven her to this chaos. He stopped, watching her for a second. She wasn't glowing with wealth. She looked lonely. This was a moment of ultimate justice. He had treated the only person who truly loved him like dirt, and now the world loved her, and he was the outsider. He realized that all his high society friends, the ones who laughed at the box, wouldn't be here if he lost his money. But she had been there when he had nothing. Who has been there for you when you had nothing? He took a step forward, his legs heavied out. Mother, he called out, his voice cracking. That Joyce turned, her eyes widening. She didn't look angry. She looked afraid, and that look cut him deeper than any knife. He had made his mother afraid of him. The shocking truth of his monstrous behavior brought him to a halt. He didn't deserve her. He didn't deserve the money. He deserved the silence of his big, empty house. But he couldn't leave her alone in this shark tank. He pushed through the last of the crowd, not to claim the prize, but to protect her. He was rushing to the auction house floor not as a businessman, but as a penitent sinner seeking redemption. He reached the circle of admirers and burst through. Joyce gasped, clutching the box tight, perhaps thinking he was there to take it away to Herbert. She stammered. Herbert didn't say a word. He didn't ask about the appraisal. He didn't look at the box. He looked at her, and then in front of the cameras, in front of the city, the arrogant Herbert Shaw fell to his knees. He wept great, heaving sobs that shook his expensive suit. I'm sorry. He choked out, grasping the hem of her worn skirt. I'm so sorry, Mama. It was a raw, ugly cry of a man whose soul was breaking open. The crowd went silent. The reporters lowered their microphones. This was the real heart-touching story, not the money, but a redemption. I was so blind, he cried, ignoring the cameras. I called it trash. I called you trash. Please, forgive me. I don't want the money. Burn it. Just don't leave me. He was begging for forgiveness before the money was even mentioned. He was stripping himself of his pride, offering his humiliation as penance. Joyce looked down at her son, the boy she had raised. Now broken at her feet, she didn't see the ungrateful son. She saw her child in pain, her heart, vast and forgiving. Softened, she reached out a trembling hand and touched his. "Hair to Herbert," she whispered. The family drama dissolved into a tableau of grace. Is forgiveness a strength or a weakness? "I'm here, son," she said. "I'm not going anywhere." Herbert looked up, tears streaming down his face. "I don't deserve you," he sobbed. "And no." She smiled sadly. "You don't, but you're my son." It was the ultimate justice love triumphing over greed. The tear-jerker moment was captured by every camera. The man who wanted to throw his mother in a nursing home was now kneeling at her feet. Valuing her above all else, the hidden treasure had done its work. It had revealed the true value of family. Herbert hugged her legs, burying his face in her skirt. Finding the comfort he had rejected for so long, he was finally home in the days that followed. The media frenzy was intense. Everyone wanted to know what Joyce would do with $1 million find. Herbert, a changed man, helped her navigate the offers, protecting her interests, never asking for a cent. He had moved her back into the main house, giving her the master suite, while he took the guest room. It was his penance, but Joyce made a decision that shocked everyone, especially Herbert. She accepted the sale of the item for $5.2 million, but as the check was signed, she turned to Herbert. "I don't need this," she said. "I have my home. I have my son back." She decided to donate the millions to charity for the elderly and homeless. Herbert stared at her, but this time there was no greed, only "Are you sure?" he asked gently. "It's a lot of money." Joyce nodded. "Money divides people." Herbert, look what it did to us. Kindness. That connects. She was teaching him the final life lesson. Family and kindness are the only true wealth. The donation made headlines. Grandmother donates antique fortune. But for Herbert, the headline was different. He had lost a fortune, but gained a soul. He looked at his mother, really looked at her, and saw the rare antique he had almost thrown away. She was a treasure. "What is your true wealth?" They sat together on the patio, drinking tea. The box was gone, sold to a museum, but the space between them was filled with warmth. Herbert took her hand. "Thank you," he said. "Not for money, but for the lesson that I'm rich," he thought, squeezing her hand. And finally rich, the story of the ungrateful son and the hidden treasure ended not with a bank balance, but with a restored bond. Joyce smiled, watching the sunset. She had saved the box, but more importantly, she had saved her son, and that was priceless. Herbert found a fortune inside a dusty box, but he found his true wealth in the forgiveness of the mother he almost threw away in the end. This story wasn't about the $5 million. It was about the painful realization that while money can buy a house, it cannot buy a home. That true legacy isn't what we leave in a bank account, but the love we leave in the hearts of those who matter most. If you also believe that kindness is the only currency that never devalues, then you have found your tribe. Subscribe and join our community of souls who refuse to let the world harden their hearts. Let's make this message echo. Hit the like button to show the algorithm that compassion still wins. Comment below. Would you have been able to forgive Herbert if you were in Joyce's shoes? I want to read your honest thoughts. And share this video with someone who needs a gentle reminder that family is the ultimate treasure. And while you process these emotions, know that our channel is a vast library of human experiences, just like this one. Explore our previous videos there. Our other hidden gems and life lessons waiting for you to discover. And to ensure you are part of our next journey, turn on the notification bell right now. We have a story coming up that will challenge everything you think you know about justice, and you won't want to be the last to see it.